And I mean, of course, in the studio, you're very isolated. And I was used to being isolated, and that's how I've always worked. Working at Mosses was wonderful because I could just be there and then go home. So it was, you know, people and kind of interaction of sorts. Although it is distracting to some extent. I could get involved. It was such a lot to do. I could be involved enough in the actual process not to be too distracted.
I feel quite safe here, though. I don't feel like we'll be struck by lightning, will we? We won't be struck by lightning.
I'd met Prinnell. He was a student of mine about 2004. I'd met him. He came to one of my classes. We lost contact, and when I moved to this flat that I'm in now, we met on the bus one day. He was going to work. I regard Prinnell as my guardian angel because he said, "Why don't you have an exhibition, Elona? I think you should have an exhibition." And he was building this kind of exhibition space at Mosses. And he said, "I know, let's have an exhibition." And always I thought, oh no, I can't, and where I've got any work and I can't. Anyway, what I did was I collected work from people who I'd sold to. I had that exhibition, and on the opening day of the exhibition, the Woodyard, the people who, Prinnell and his uncle and aunt, gave me this piece of lime wood. Someone left this in the Woodyard 8 years ago and they never came to collect it. So we'll give it to you and you can work on it. It's big enough for a figure because it's 5 foot tall. It's big enough. I'll be really ambitious. I'll do a figure. And at the same time, my friend had just sent me a catalogue from an exhibition in Paris of Camille Claudel. And so I got this piece of wood and I had the catalogue sort of similar times. And I thought, I know what, I'll do a homage to Camille Claudel. That's how it was, as simple as that, really. You have to work all over it. You can't just work on one little part of a sculpture. You work all over the thing to get the proportions and the balance right. Looking at it from the back, you know, it's just a question of getting it balanced rather than right. I draw a line right the way round. I drew from lengthwise a line right the way round to make the centre line, and then I draw lines across like that so that in my head, that kind of establishes the centre of the wood, so that I know that I'm working from that centre. Originally, I did have a line all the way down the back. It doesn't have to be, but I just feel that, I think it, just looking at it from that view, makes a big difference. I wanted it to be more contemporary, and I thought about the idea of the legs walking in one in front of the way a model walks down a catwalk. So I twisted. So it goes all the way down here on the leg. That's that bit there. And here. Because the piece of wood was very flat and square, I wanted to transform that into something that was twisted and moving. I didn't want it to be static. First face I had was very flat because obviously I was working from a flat photograph, so I wanted to make it three-dimensional and make it work as you walk round the piece. I've got to make the head now work. I've really got to put some delicate work into the face, so the face is more important. That's how I work. Once she was in the mental hospital, no one knew she was alive, no one knew anything about her until she died. I mean,
Who put her in there?
Her mother.
Oh, that's right.
When her father
Bloody
died.
mother. When her father died. Well, she must have been a stepmother.
No, because her
No,
father,
she was a real mother.
Real mother.
She
But
had a
her father
sister.
supported her in her work. Can you imagine how unusual it was?
She brought shame on her family, and her
For
mother
being an
wouldn't
artist.
forgive her. Yeah.
Well,
And having an affair with Rona. I suppose her mother and her sister ganging up against her had a kind of echo in my own life. I mean, not necessarily in fact, but, you know, I had a sister and a mother, and they were always closer to each other than to me. You know, I was the outside one. And so I suppose those kind of echoes happen. They're not exact, and it's not about the truth, but it's just an echo, you know. People don't want to always concentrate on the tragic, but it was a tragedy, you know. And it happened, and she was a sculptor, so she is symbolic of things which, in our generation, you know, 100 years on, you know, it's not the same. You know, women are working, and they do have access to different things, and they have more physical freedom for their own lives, but there's still echoes of, you know, fathers and daughters and mothers and daughters and all those things which, you know, carry on. Sometimes you kind of fall in love with your pieces, and I did find her very haunting. You know, it was a kind of relationship builds up when you're working on something. She's still in the woodyard. I keep her there. It hasn't been sold, so she's sitting there. But it's odd, when I do sell something, they go away, and I don't think about them anymore. Well, in fact, I don't think about Camille. I used to, when I was working on her, at the end, I would like to go and touch her, and I did kind of develop this relationship, you know. I couldn't have anticipated what I was going to make before I did it, because I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be too frightened.